Thank you, Sylvia. And yeah, welcome everybody. So today the title of the webinar is Who Do You Live With? Which exchanges shape your oikos? And to start with, I wanted to introduce the notion of oikos. So maybe we can go directly to the next slide. Uh, Oikos comes from the Greek and refers to the house. So it's the space that we shape, our living space, but also the space that we share with all other living being on Earth. And I found this quote in a book which is really interesting, called The Urban Natural Roosting. Um, Instead of describing the non-human world anthropocentrically in human terms, there are now good reasons to describe the whole world ecocentrically as an oikos, the house. And then the author says the non-human natural house I inhabit is the same place as my fully human cultural home. I think this quote is interesting also uh, because it relates really to the idea of the zoonomy, which uh, brings together economy and ecology. So in both words, actually, you find the word eco. So they both refer to the oikos, and ecology being about the relationships within these oikos, and economy. What are the practices that produce livelihood? And the idea of zoonomy is to look at the world in a more holistic way, and to see a system of exchange that acknowledges the precondition of the non-human for our human activities to exist. Um, and and within this, maybe we can go to the next slide. Um, Humans should be seeking to regenerate the relationships. Yeah, human inclusive ecosystem. The idea is that the non-human is always a precondition to humans being there. Um, yes. Next slide. Um, and So this practice of zoonomy is guided by the zoonomic annual cycle. This is a method that was developed and that we're going to also use for this mapping. It's about bringing an ecosystemic understanding of where we are, so understanding in terms of relationship. And it looks at bodies, which are the things that create the community, and their relationship. It goes through 5 steps. The first step is to identify these bodies. The second step is to sense, observe them, and to determine how do they communicate, which kind of life world do they belong to. The third step is to characterize their relationship, to say, are they regenerative, degenerative, neutral? And the fourth and 5 is about focusing and then taking actions after having analyzed to say, okay, these relationships are regenerative. We want to reinforce them. These are degenerative. Maybe we can work on them to reach zoonomic integrity. That's the aim, but it's also not an end goal of the zoonomy, of this practice of the zoonomy. We can look at the next slide. And the zoonomic integrity is really about engaging as humans in these relationships and fostering regenerative relationships. It is adapted from a concept of ecological integrity, but it includes humans, and it's not about achieving an end state of yeah, this is the ecosystem where everybody lives well, because this doesn't really exist. Things are always moving, but is really to continually engage in this practice, and also using this annual cycle to understand the relationships around us. So maybe next I can introduce the mapping tool, which is adapted from this Zoonomic annual cycle. So what you see here is this dotted donut, which represent your oîkos, your project. And the edge, which is an important zone, which is a zone where a lot of exchange happen, and on the outside are other oîkos, other organizations with which you exchange or communicate or influence. And so in this tool, at first we're gonna identify the bodies that form your organization. There could be several ways to start this. One can be to ask, what do you take for granted? What are the non-human living beings that make that allow your organization to exist? One could be, what are urgencies or what are concerns in your organization at the moment? And first, it's gonna be about, yeah, naming these different bodies and associate them with a life world. These are the five shapes, five realms, but well, yeah, that are the bottom of the map. There could be more, but we're gonna distinguish the bodies as either geophysical, biochemical, sociocultural, organizational, political, or legal, contractual. To understand what kind of what do they perceive, how do they communicate, and then using these shapes, these outlines, we're gonna understand also how do they relate, all these bodies in the circle, to each other. Maybe we can go directly to the example because it will make more sense. So here is a map, a little map of Crater. So of course, it is impossible to identify all the bodies that make up your project. It would be an infinite index. But here I wanted to start with the soil, with the ground, and then I try to follow a bit of a chain and intuitively also what felt important. So I started with the rubble, which is an important element of the soil, and on which a lot of decomposed organic matter allows for plants to grow, for example, the Japanese knotweed. And here you see this Japanese knotweed is entangled in a lot of relationships. One that I find interesting is how it is perceived by the public opinion. I think when I was in Qatar, I realized the public opinion is always a big concern, actually. And I think what allows the Japanese knotweed to also be in this regenerative relationship is that it is mediated by Traina and by the workshop, the action that happens in the workshop, which here I mapped the workshop as a socio-cultural body, which can be understood by the public opinion, and then therefore creates a regenerative relationship. Whereas another example here on the map are the mosquitoes, which, yeah, they're in a relationship with also all the other biochemical elements, such as me and André, but they are not being mediated by anyone. And I could have also included the public or the inhabitants from the neighborhood here. And therefore, well, yeah, they don't, they actually, the relationship between us and the mosquitoes, I would say, is quite degenerative. It's, and also in regard to the public opinion, it's actually, yeah, it's not, yeah, it's not really understood, let's say. Why are so many mosquitoes there? Yes, maybe if there are any questions already, I could start answering, or Bianca, you would like to also present the maps that you've done.
I think it's good if we go to Bianca, since
yeah, I can try. Actually, I realized now that maybe the other oikos I haven't, well, I haven't mapped an organization. So what I mapped is that in the oikos of La Foresta, the assembly is the most important central thing that happens where we take our decisions together. And then through the zoonomic perspective, I also thought about the big 3 cedar trees that we have around our building, which we actually don't really think a lot about. But actually, I think without them, life would be very different. Like, they give us a lot of shade and they create quite a nice environment in this very kind of, how to say, very trafficked place with lots of car passing in front of the station and so on. We still have this park with this tiny park with 3 very big trees. Then I have the cooperation agreement with the municipality on the edge of our oikos, where I think this is like how we actually, this cooperation agreements allows us to be in that space, and it's somehow at the edge, it's keeping our boundaries. Then we have on our edge also the rail platforms. We are right on platform 1, but actually we don't interact too much. We have a big fence between us and platform 1, and the Italian railways clearly don't want us to go onto the platform because it seems dangerous. And so actually we somehow, at times we forget that we're right on platform 1. So we could work on that edge, I think, much more, because it's a very cool edge. But it's, yeah, it's like a frontier we can't pass over. And then as in La Foresta, we're also making our own drinks. I've been thinking lately quite a lot about the spring water that we use. So we use tap water, which comes from an amazing local spring. And this, I think, is quite cool because the water, we went to do a visit in March, I think it was. And the water comes out of the mountains, and then within 3 hours, it comes out of the tap. So I think it's quite amazing, and that we can go from this spring up in the mountains right into, into our toilets even, and into the space we have, and we have this very kind of direct connection through all the infrastructure, the water infrastructure. And then I thought about the other oikos that is shaping us, which is the Adige River. It's the biggest river through our valley, which I think is also quite, we don't think about it too much. Once a month minimum, we go and do cleanup actions. We take away rubbish from the river. But I don't think that we actually kind of take into consideration enough how that river is actually shaping the livelihoods in our valley. And I picked these because I thought, what is on our mind, which is important at the moment, which is this cooperation agreement, which we have to renew in November. So this is something we're all working on. And then the other things, and I mean, the assembly is like a constant, but for instance, the cedar trees, the spring, the rail platforms, the Adige River, we just take them for granted somehow. We're not really seeing them anymore. So I map them. And if you go to the next slide, then I try to connect them. And there in my map, it becomes a mess. It becomes a mess. And that's where I got a bit lost of like, oh my God, it's a mess. How do I deal with all this complexity and it's all connected and I don't know how to disentangle. So yeah, maybe, I mean, I didn't get to the part that Eli also did of, is it generative, degenerative, the relation. But I think in some of these, the relation simply, maybe it could be called degenerative because we're not paying attention to it. So this, the spring is coming directly into the kitchen of La Foresta. We don't really think about it. We don't take care of it. So I think potentially in the long run, it's degenerative because we don't give it care, which I think like lots of people in our valley are not giving care or thought to this. So I think like, over generations, probably it's degenerative. And the same with the Adige River. There is actually, I think it's really degenerative, the way the valley interacts and also the way we're not really we do these cleanup actions, but we see that there is actually so much rubbish there. There is so much to be done. And we're actually not going to the root of the cause, but we're just kind of taking away the rubbish and placing it somewhere else in the landfill. So it's just a kind of a shifting of things. But we quite like to think about the river because it connects us directly to the sea. And it gives us this vision of being in a bioregion, and that what we do here is directly connected to everyone else along that river. So in that sense, it helps us to think. But yeah, I think this one, it would be a very interesting one to dedicate like half a day to each of these issues or each of the actors to really dig into it. Because when you think about all these relations, it just explodes. For me, like the complexity gets very high.
Yeah. Looking at both of your maps, I'm also imagining a way to kind of isolate maybe two bodies that are overlapping and doing an analysis just of those bodies. Like there's definitely ways to extract from these maps and look at the individual clusters. Or I like the way that Ellie also did it with this kind of almost like mathematical equation that you have where you can look at those combinations. Go ahead, Andre.
For Carter and for Trino, when we were doing the mapping, it was always interesting to actually think of the bodies, but actually what are and how this interaction that you have with the bodies is actually you're talking of some kind of language. What is the language of this interaction? So it's when it's this legal contractual with the Ministry of Justice. We have a really formal language. We are not really familiar with. So it's really we have to work on it. We have to think of what is the language we use there. Then when we go to the maybe this bio body, it's what is the language there? It's actually a kind of care for the species that live with us, and this care again, you see that this language that goes to these bodies, it's a language that you're not familiar with, and it's something that you develop through time or by inviting new collaborators that know better this language. So for me, it wasn't just to when we were mapping this, it wasn't just like to see how things are overlapping, but actually to think what is my language, just to say what is this interaction I have, how do I communicate with this body,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, yeah, this was already a step, a moving mechanism in my way of thinking that before wasn't there.
Yeah. Based on what Ellie was saying before, um, about the mosquitoes, it seems like you need to develop a special language to understand maybe, I don't know, their way of reproducing, where they like to be,
Yeah, this like it's
what kind
just
of plants they
obviously
don't like.
yeah, it's really normal that not all the relations are mm, like friendly, I would say, or yeah, as regenerative or
Mhm.
productive or things like that. Some can be uh, situation of conflict, and then it's a really for us. It's again a creative process of thinking maybe outside the box,
Mm.
uh, how to approach it from the perspective of working with actually with an ecosystem, and this is just like an element in the ecosystem, and there are some characteristics of this ecosystem that make it really
Mhm.
nice for mosquitoes. And,
Yeah, but
it's nice for us and it's nice for them, and yeah, so we meet there.
yeah, I mean, the mosquitoes also might be telling you something else. Like it might be an indicator. Not like it might not be the public opinion. I could imagine seeing it as like Carter's fault that the mosquitoes are there. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever said like, oh, you guys,
Yeah, I mean
by
it's
leaving this space this way, like you're attracting more mosquitoes. I don't know if that's something that people are telling to, but I can imagine. But it's important then to consider the other oikos, because Crater is not just in isolation. Like there's the whole city is an ecosystem, so there's a reason maybe why the mosquitoes are there. Maybe because bats are not there. Maybe because other things that are eating the mosquitoes are not there because they don't have habitat. You
but
know.
also maybe other things come come like some birds or even bats are coming more to Crater because there is more of mosquitoes.
Right.
So again,
Right.
getting rid of mosquitoes again, it would make like a hole into
Right.
the what
It might
actually
just need time.
Crater brings to other bodies.
Yeah, it might just need time
Yeah.
as well. I want to take advantage of Bianca being here before she goes to her next meeting as well. Um, if there's any comments or questions from the audience, we can also open up the discussion to you.